I can do that.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everybody. Is there everybody enter now? Yes? Did the 17 people who are waiting in the
Oh,
waiting room enter?
yeah.
I can't see.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
cool.
entered.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you. Emma, are you recording?
Yep, I'm recording.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Um, Hello, welcome. Welcome everybody. Happy spring migration and welcome to our webinar, 4 Ways to Keep Wisconsin's Birds Fat and Healthy this Spring. I am Shelley Torkelson. I'm the Communications Director for the Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin. And we at NRF and SOS Save Our Songbirds are happy to co-present this webinar. And we also hope you've all been enjoying Fat Bird Week over the last week. And I know some of you probably are here because you're just so excited to hear which bird won this year. So yeah, our first ever Wisconsin Fat Bird Week was a lot of fun last week. We had almost 8,000 votes and raised a lot of awareness about Wisconsin's native birds. And one of my favorites, the bountiful barn swallow, didn't even make it past the first round, but that's okay. The people have spoken. And our winner, which we'll announce at the very end of this webinar, is a real chonker. Uh, so at this webinar, we're going to learn all about how we can each help keep our state's beloved fat and not so fat birds happy and healthy. Um, I'm excited to have some really great presenters for you all who really know their birds. We have here with us today Amy Alstad from Holy Wisdom Monastery, Brenna Marsicek from Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance, Lisa Gaumnitz from SOS Save Our Songbirds, and Soumika Gaddameedi from NRF, my coworker. And so as you can see, these are the different topics they're going to each talk about. We'll go over some other ways that you all can help birds here in Wisconsin. We'll announce the winner of Wisconsin Fat Bird Week, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat or save them for the end. So hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the very end. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. Let's, let the learning begin. Amy, while I'm introducing you, do you want to go ahead and share your screen? Okay.
Yep.
So our first presenter is Amy Alstad. She's the Director of Land Management and Environmental, sorry, whoa, that messed up my thing. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Covered up my
Do you want me to
my
share?
intro. Yeah, just for a second. Sorry. Didn't know
No
that would
problem.
happen. Thank you. So yeah, she's the Director of Land Management and Environmental Education at Holy Wisdom Monastery. She has a PhD in prairie ecology from UW-Madison, almost a decade of professional experience in the field of restoration ecology, and a deep-rooted family tradition of restoring and tending prairies that spans 4 generations. So thank you for joining us, Amy. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. It's an honor to be with you for this lunchtime webinar, and I'm just going to jump right in. So this first segment, we're talking about creating great bird habitat, and specifically how we can do that with native plants. I'm going to be focusing the talk today on more of an urban setting. So thinking about container gardening for an apartment or condo balcony, maybe a backyard, maybe a green space. We're not talking about vast acreage for this conversation. Let's see, there we go. So to set the stage or a little bit of context for talking about native plants and bird habitat, I want to share the somewhat sobering statistic, which is that suburban yards are quickly becoming one of the dominant ecosystems in North America. By some estimates, there are as many as 1 million new acres of urban lawn added to the US every year. And in some ways, that's really bad news for birds, because in a traditional sense, like this picture that we're looking at here, this is a food desert. It's a dead zone. Birds and other native wildlife look at this and they don't see much habitat value. But the good news is there is a real opportunity to kind of flip the script and reimagine what lawns can be, should be, are. And if we do reimagine what a landscape looks like, there is a really a great opportunity to create good bird habitat at scale. So there are a lot of us on this Zoom call right now. If just all of us do a little bit of work in our own yard or our own neighborhood park, work with friends and neighbors, you know, we start to have a real impact and create good bird habitat right at home. So when we're thinking about kind of the fundamental components of really good bird habitat, plants are at the basis of those considerations. And really the heart of that is that we've got this mutually beneficial partnership that exists between plants and birds. So there are a lot of ways in which plants help birds to address all of their habitat needs. One good example, and this is probably what a lot of us think of right off the bat when we think, how do plants help birds? And that is they provide food directly. So in this picture that you're looking at here, this catbird is directly consuming the berries of the dogwood plant. But another really important way that plants support birds is by providing food indirectly. So plants are at the basis of the food chain. Many species of insects eat plants. And so if you don't have the right plants in an ecosystem, you don't have the right insects. And that turns out to be a huge deal for birds. If we're trying to keep our birds fat, healthy, and happy, 96% of the native songbirds feed their young exclusively insects. And there's a really high volume need for like this family of barn swallows that we're looking at here, the bountiful barn swallow. This family of barn swallows is catching, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of insects to keep their young fledged fed and raised. So by providing that indirect food source. And then last but not least, plants also support good bird habitat by providing shelter. So that might be a place to nest, that might be roosting from, you know, protection from the elements, protection from predators, another important component of bird habitat. There are also a lot of ways that we flip the script and birds help plants. Like I said, this is a mutually beneficial relationship. Birds help plants by providing pollination, seed dispersal, by eating some of those insect pests. But we're all about the birds for this webinar today. So we're going to focus on this first sort of leg of the relationship, the ways that plants help birds. So one of the things to keep in mind with this mutually beneficial partnership is that it takes time to develop. This doesn't just happen overnight. And a good way to, or a good example to illustrate this point is to consider these two closely related species of maple. So red maple there on the left side of the screen, Norway maple on the right side of the screen. Both of these species are found in southern Wisconsin. Red maple is native to southern Wisconsin. Norway maple was introduced from Europe, but it's been in the Wisconsin landscape a long time. We think that it was introduced to Wisconsin area about 250 years ago. So that's a long time that it's been part of the landscape, that insects have had an opportunity to adjust to Norway maple. But even though it's been here for 250 years, we know from studies that there are 3 times more insects that are found on the native species, the red maple, compared to the Norway maple. And so this dials back to the point about how plants support birds indirectly by providing habitat needs. If you think about a family of chickadees, so we've got a pair of adult chickadees working hard to keep their young fed and happy as they're fledging that brood of young. We think that estimates suggest that a family of chickadees needs somewhere between 5,000 and 9,000 caterpillars to fledge that one batch of young. And so if you think about how much harder that poor pair of chickadees has to work if they're in an environment dominated by Norway maple and other non-native species, there are just many fewer insects in that landscape. They have to work an awful lot harder to get that fledge of young. So we're going to return, now that we've got that example of the maples, we'll return to this claim that I made earlier. It's a mutually beneficial relationship, and I'm going to slightly amend it and say in almost all cases, native plants provide better for these needs of birds. So they're better at providing food directly, they're better at providing food indirectly, and they're better at providing shelter as compared to non-native plants. Plenty of fun examples that we could explore, but in the interest of time, we're going to keep moving here. And so now in the second part of the presentation, before I hand it off to Brenna, we'll be thinking just a little bit about some good examples of natives for your space. So I hope I've made at least a bit of a case for why natives are better than non-natives. And now we'll think through a couple of examples and also talk through how you might go about sourcing some natives for your backyard, balcony, green space. But before I do that, I want to do just a tiny bit. We're not going to get into the weeds of a lot of botanical terminology here, but I want to point out that when you're picking species, you can go from a native species to a native cultivar to a non-native species. And all of these may have some benefits for birds. The point I want to make here is you don't have to be a perfectionist. You don't have to be a real purist. I will admit, I am really fond of zinnias. I know that they are not, they're not super valuable in terms of providing habitat needs and other resources for birds and wildlife in my backyard, but you don't have to be 100% all native all the time. So I've this list on the left-hand side of your screen that is listed in order of most to least beneficial to birds. And what I would recommend, I'd be happy to answer questions about this at the end in terms of difference between species and a cultivar, but the best way to reliably and confidently source native species is by working with a nursery that specializes in native species, rather than going to your neighborhood gardening store, picking up your zinnias, your tomato plants, and this cultivar that who knows exactly what its source is. All right, so we'll wrap up here with just running through a couple of examples, not all of the, not knowing the specifics of how big your space is it sunny, is it shady, what kind of soils do you have? These are going to be very general specifics, but what I hope to illustrate is kind of a framework or a lens you can use to think about evaluating the benefits provided to birds by various species that may be a good fit for your space. So one of the real champions of supporting our native bird population is oaks. Oaks provide shelter, cavities for nesting, lots of strong branches for roosting. They directly support a lot of native birds. Acorns as a food source are eaten by dozens and dozens of native birds. And last but not least, they are really just a wonderful host plant for all of these many species of larvae. 532 different species of Wisconsin caterpillars use oaks as a host plant. So that's a lot of food for our chickadee family. Another really good example, much smaller, not all of us have space for an oak in our backyard, and dogwoods. There are a lot of different species of native dogwoods. They are also really adept at supporting native birds. The dogwood fruits are eaten by 34 different Wisconsin bird species, and they're nice. They come ripe at the fall, so end of the growing season, right as a lot of our migratory species are really trying to bulk up, gain a lot of resources so that they have plenty of energy for that flight south. And dogwoods are also really good larval host plants, 118 caterpillar species known to eat from dogwood. And then last but not least, I'll also mention wild strawberry. This is one of my favorites. This is a really hardy plant that can grow in a lot of different environments, full sun, full shade. It's pretty tolerant of a lot of different soil types. So almost every backyard urban green space is a good fit for wild strawberries. 53 birds eat the berries from wild strawberries, and there's also a lot of caterpillars associated with this species, 81, that will use strawberries as a host plant. So this was kind of a whirlwind tour. I'm going to wrap up here. Just if there's one point you take away from my component of this webinar, I hope it is this point, which is that if you plant more native plants, that means more insects. And if you have more insects, that means you've got better fed birds, more birds in your habitat.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. I did not know that those wild strawberries could grow in so many different places. I'm totally going to get those instead of regular strawberries for my yard.
Yeah,
Because
they
we can
will
nibble on
spread
too.
too. Sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes you sort of have to keep your strawberries bounded.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so our next presenter is Brenna Marsicek. Brenna is the Director of Outreach for Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance and coordinates or supports a variety of volunteer citizen science monitoring programs, including the Bird Collision Corps, Bald Eagle Nest Watch, Kestrel Nest Box Monitoring Program, and the Madison Area Christmas Bird Count. She loves helping homeowners, building occupants, and communities become more bird friendly and sustainable. So go ahead and start whenever you're ready, Brenna.
Great, thank you. I'm trying to get my presentation situated, but I think what I'll do is just do this. Okay, so thank you everyone. It's really great to be here. I always learn a lot from Amy and Lisa, and I can't wait to hear about Birdathon as well and find out about that fat bird that won. But I am here to talk about somewhat less of a happy topic, which is window collisions. And we're talking about window collisions because the windows are a really big problem for birds. So up to 1 billion birds die every single year in the United States after hitting a window. And almost half of those collisions happen at homes. So, you know, that's a really big problem, but it's also, I think, a really good problem for us to work with because it's something that we can do something about. We have control over what our windows look like, what we put on them and what we don't. And we can make some changes that have an instant and positive effect on the bird population. So, so this is a big issue, but we can change it. So let's talk about why birds and windows don't mix. As you can see in this photo here of this American redstart, the eyes on this bird are on the sides of her head, right? This is a songbird. This is typical for songbirds. Songbirds are often the victims of window collisions. And so their eyes are placed where they are so that they can see predators coming, but it also changes their depth of perception and the way that they view things as they fly. Birds also have hollow bones, which means that it makes them lightweight in order to fly. But if they run into something solid, the likelihood of them getting severely injured or dying is greater. So those two biological factors really play a role in why birds and windows are not a good mix. They also don't have the benefit of speaking our language, right? Like we learn from an early age that things that look like this, that are encased in, you know, like a solid frame that has something that appears to be see-through, we learn from an early age that that is a window, that is something solid and hard. And even still, we still sometimes run into windows and glass doors, right? Like there are lots of funny videos of this happening. But birds don't have that experience. They don't have the ability to learn that from someone. And so they don't see it the same way that we do. They don't recognize that that thing is a window. And third, a lot of songbirds will migrate at night. So most of songbird migration happens in the dead of night, which is great for them because it allows them to avoid a lot of predators. But it also, in some cases, puts them at a disadvantage in terms of buildings and windows. So birds migrate by sight, which means that if there's fog or a low cloud cover, they have to move down below the cloud cover so that they can see where they're going, which puts them in line with buildings. And it also means that when they come down in the morning and the sun comes up, this is what they see, right? They don't see a window, they see a really great tree to fly to for rest and shelter or food or to hide from a predator. And so they try to fly at that tree or whatever is reflected in the window. And instead of getting to their desired tree, they hit the window. So reflection of windows is one of the primary drivers of this huge window collision problem that birds have. The second big driver of this is transparency of glass. Obviously, a window is going to be transparent. That's the whole point of it, right? So that people can see out of it and into it. But when there is a window, a set of windows that runs parallel with another set of windows, that gives the illusion that a bird could fly right through it. If they don't see that as a hard, solid object, that they could fly right through it. It's called a pass-through effect. So in places like Wisconsin, where we have winter and people want to sometimes avoid it, we end up with skywalks so that people can go from building to building without going outside. Or we might have four-season rooms on the back of our houses that are sometimes fully glass. So in these situations, that creates a pass-through effect, but it can also just happen in a standard, you know, modest home. Like at my house, I can see in through my living room windows and right out the back of my patio doors into the backyard. And so, you know, it's not an unusual situation to have a pass-through, but it's something to be really aware of as responsible bird lovers. And of course, lights being on at night is another big problem because it draws birds in and it puts them closer to buildings, and it also can confuse them. So they will sometimes just become so exhausted that they can't go on anymore. So turning lights off or having some shades up is a great way to avoid this. So our Bird Collision Corps program, which is a citizen science group of volunteers who go out during spring and fall migration and document where birds are hitting windows in the Madison area, they've found that these are the top 9 species of birds that are affected by window collisions in the Madison area. So if you look at this slide, these are some of our favorite birds, right? We have cedar waxwings and hummingbirds and great sparrows and warblers. Some of these are small, some are larger, but these are all really great birds. Many of them are long distance migrants, which makes sense, right? Because in the spring and the fall, they have to fly, they have to move. And so they're just moving and flying more than they would be otherwise during the year. So these migrants are especially susceptible to window collisions. So when we're talking about how to make some changes at home to help solve this problem or help prevent birds from dying at our windows, there are 2 main goals. One is to reduce the transparency and those pass-through effects, and one is to reduce the reflection that is seen on the glass. So most people know at their house where their problem window is. It's usually one window or maybe 2. But it's the one that maybe is the big picture window in the living room, or it's the sliding patio door out back. But most people know where their problem window is, and that's the problem window that you want to target first. You don't have to treat all your windows, just the one that's causing the collisions. So you can pick out a style you like. I'll show you a few different options. And there are literally hundreds of options you could choose from, so you could easily dive into that rabbit hole and maybe get stuck in some decision paralysis. So I'm offering you a few options that people really like. And then if you put it up and you like it, you will leave it up for hopefully forever, and that will prevent you from having to spend the time taking it down and redoing it, which also benefits birds because it will stay up for longer. In most cases, whatever window treatment you put up will need to follow the 2-inch rule. So that idea is that whatever is on the glass should be 2 inches away from the next thing on the glass. So you can see in the image here that there are dots on this door and windows, and those dots are 2 inches apart from each other. And that's because American Bird Conservancy has done a ton of research on this. And their studies have shown that 2-inch spacing is the most effective spacing for reducing window collisions. So any greater spacing than that, birds are super acrobatic and they'll try and fly through and squeeze through those areas. There's one exception to this rule, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. So whatever you put on, ideally it's on the outside of the glass because that will reduce the reflection that shows in the glass. That's a big reason for having it on the outside if you can. And it also eliminates that transparency effect of, the pass through. So ideally your window treatment goes on the outside. And then if you put up a window treatment and it solves all the problem at your house, that's great. If you're finding that there are window collisions happening elsewhere, you can repeat the process at that window as well. So the first solution we'll talk about is the good old-fashioned insect screen. So these are super effective at reducing window collisions. They're one of the best, actually, window treatments that there is. Most houses have windows that have screens on them already, or if you've taken them down and put them in the basement, you can put them back up because they really do a great job at reducing the reflection and the transparency of the glass. If you have a casement window or a crank out window where the screen is on the inside of the glass, on the inside, so on the house side of the, on the inside of the glass, you are probably reducing the transparency and that pass-through effect, but you would have to still consider whether there's a reflection on the outside of the glass that you would have to treat. So it might be that even though you have a window screen on that window, you would still need something on the outside of the glass to reduce the reflection. Tempera paint or oil-based markers are also really a great option. Tempera paint is very cheap. You can get it from a craft store for $3. And they come in a bunch of different colors. So you can paint some kind of design on your glass. As long as you're following that 2-inch rule, it's very effective. Tempera paint is washable too. So you can wash off your windows and put up a new design, or if it rains, you may notice that your tempera paint is looking a little sad and droopy. So this tempera paint option is best done if there's a window that's sort of under protection of the elements. So if you have like a front door that's under the porch overhang, this would be a good spot for it. The oil-based markers are also a really nice option as well that do a similar thing, but they're not quite as washable. These dots, as you've seen in a couple other photos, are very popular. They are provided by a couple different companies. One is Feather Friendly, which Lisa from SOS Save Our Songbirds has secured a discount code for in case you are interested in trying these dots. But the dots come in a box that has a roll of tape. The dots are already on the roll of tape. So you press the tape to the window, you really squeeze it on with the squeegee or with the little tool that they give you, and you pull back the tape and just the dots remain. So you can put it up on your window like this in a weekend. If it's a smaller window, it could be an afternoon, but they last a really long time. They're weatherproof, so you can leave them up all year and they don't come off or fade, or if you have a pressure washer on your window, it doesn't take them down. So these are a great and popular option as well. These paracord curtains are very effective, and they are often really appealing for people who like the way that they sort of move in the breeze. So these curtains are made from paracord, which is a material used in parachutes. So it's like a slippery nylon material, meaning that it doesn't get tangled up very easily. It doesn't start to degrade after a couple months of being up outside. They last a long time and they look really nice. So you make a curtain where the strings hang down in front of the glass. They move in the breeze, and these are really effective at reducing collisions. You might notice that these are more than 2 inches apart. So this is the exception to that 2-inch rule, because the strings aren't attached to the glass the way that the stickers would be. They can move and they're more effective at reducing collisions versus other things that would be attached to the glass. And so they can be a little bit further apart. Lisa also has a discount code for these if you're interested. So if you have a feeder or a garden at your house that's drawing birds in, you'll want to follow a 3 or 30 rule, which is, if your bird feeder is within 3 feet of your home or 30 or more than 30 feet away from your home, that is the best way to prevent birds from hitting your windows. I can talk more about that later if you'd like. And I'll just jump to this last screen here that shows what doesn't work. You probably have seen these hawk silhouettes as a window collision deterrent, but they are not following the 2-inch rule when you put just one up on the window. And birds learn really quickly that this is not a real hawk, so they're not afraid of it. And they will try and scoot around it and get into whatever's reflected in the glass around it. So ideally, you would choose an option that is a 2-inch rule option. So I'll stop there. I think I went over time. I'm sorry, Shelley.
That's okay. It's very interesting stuff. I just bought some tempera paint for one of my windows literally yesterday, so I'm excited to do my
Great.
one window that killed one bird ever, and I felt so terrible when I saw it.
Yeah.
So thank
Well,
you
I
for
hope
that
it works well for you.
information. Yeah, I'm hoping to. Awesome. Thank you so much. So Lisa, you will be next. Our third presenter is Lisa Gaumnitz. For 35 years, Lisa wrote about nature for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and helped reporters do the same. Her appreciation for birds and concern over their decline grew during the pandemic as she spent more time watching birds outside her home office window. Now retired from the DNR, Lisa coordinates the SOS Save Our Songbirds Action Campaign, an initiative of the Wisconsin Bird Conservation Partnership. So go ahead, Lisa, welcome.
All right, thank you. Let's see, my slideshow just disappeared. So let me let me see if I can. Get that back up. All right, great. Are you seeing the bright red bird, the scarlet tanager?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you. And thank you for that little your patience in that technological problem there. But and I appreciate your taking time out for a little bit of coffee talk. So Americans love coffee. 66% of us drink coffee. That's more than report drinking water. And that's totals up to about 400 million cups of coffee a day. So that's a lot of coffee. And I'll tell you, coffee is an important thing in my house. So if coffee is a big part of your life, we've got one thing that you can do at home that will really help our birds while you enjoy your cup of coffee, and that is to drink bird-friendly coffee. So what is bird-friendly coffee? Well, I will tell you, it is not about not about birds drinking coffee. And over the weekend, we had a lot of events, and that was actually a question that I got was, what is bird-friendly coffee? Do birds really drink coffee? And so that's not what we're talking about here, but we're talking about coffee that is grown on farms that do a really great job of protecting habitat for our birds. And that's really important because as many of our songbirds spend their winters in Central and South America and actually spend more time there than they do here in Wisconsin. And so we have to pay attention to the habitat down there if we're going to have the birds come back to us in the spring. So what we're talking about right here is, and I don't know if you can see the cursor here, but we're talking about Central and South America. So this is where a lot of our songbirds go for the winter. And it just so happens to be that this is also where coffee is grown. And it used to be that if you look at the image on the right side here, that's how coffee has been grown for most of the 500 years that humans have been drinking coffee. It's grown under the shade of trees and supports lots of birds. But increasingly in recent decades, farmers have been cutting down the trees and moving to coffee that grows in the sun, grows faster in the sun. And so in fact, in Central and South America, 75% of the farms have converted to this style of growing, the sun coffee monoculture. And that's had an impact on our birds. The Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center does a lot of research to look at what birds are using what different habitats. And they found that the shade coffee supports far more birds than the coffee that's grown in the sun. In fact, 4 times as many birds. So that's a problem because, again, more farms are converting to this sun coffee. And so the habitat's vanishing for our birds. But the good news is that the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center, about 25 years ago, created a certification program to reward farmers for protecting bird habitat. And the program is called the Bird Friendly Certification Program. So the farms that get the certification from Smithsonian, they meet high standards for tree diversity, for the shade cover, for having mature trees. And they're also all certified as organic. So they're not using chemical pesticides on the land. And that makes a big difference for our birds. So where to buy this bird-friendly coffee? Well, because this program is only 25 years old, and as I mentioned earlier, humans have been consuming coffee for more than 500 years. It's limited availability at retail locations. So what's easiest to do is to visit the Smithsonian site and to order it online or get a subscription from one of 80 roasters. And I've got the website up there, birdfriendly.si.edu. And we've also got a link on our SOS website. So Birds and Beans is one of the roasters that gets a coffee that's certified by Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center. And you can order online or subscribe for home delivery at birdsandbeanscoffee.com. I've got a subscription. I get 2 bags of coffee a month. And you can also go onto our website, and there are limited retail locations in Wisconsin. We've got a list of where those are on our website. But if you don't want to have coffee shipped to you and you still want to buy something local, you've got a neighbor like I do who owns a coffee shop and you want to support him, the Smithsonian says that the second best option is to buy organic coffee because 1, they're not using the chemical pesticides. And then 2, usually an organic system also preserves some of the trees. So again, organic coffee is the second best option. And you can look for either this symbol that will be on the bag or it will be labeled as organic. So it is a little bit more expensive. So, you be prepared for that. But I think that it's when you think about what it is preserving, hopefully you're on this webinar because you love birds. And these birds that we see right here, the yellow warbler, the rose-breasted grosbeak, the Baltimore oriole, indigo bunting, and a black and white warbler, those are the birds that are arriving now. And they're the ones that we really love to see. It's such a thrill at this time of the year. So by buying bird-friendly coffee, kind of working that into your morning routine, we can help make sure that these birds come back to us here in Wisconsin so that we can enjoy them every spring. So thank you again for tuning in, and I'll hand it off to back to Shelley.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I didn't know that coffee was originally grown under tree cover. That's interesting, and that it's been a recent shift. So thank you. I'm learning way more than I even ever thought I would. This is great. Okay, so our last presenter is Soumi Gaddameedi. Soumi joined NRF as our Events and Donor Relations Coordinator a year and a half ago and was an intern prior to that. She coordinates the Great Wisconsin Birdathon event, which is the largest fundraiser for bird conservation in Wisconsin. And she also coordinates our Wayfarers group for young adults. So go ahead, Soumi, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes, we can see your notes this time, though, interestingly. On the top in the middle, I think there's a toggle on the other screen you were on. In the middle, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Shelley. So another way that you can help our birds is to get involved with the Great Wisconsin Birdathon, which is happening now through June 15th. So the Birdathon is our largest fundraiser for bird conservation in Wisconsin, and it's a great way to get out in nature and go bird watching while also learning about birds with other birders, all while raising important funds for bird conservation. So the Birdathon started in 2012. This is the 13th year, and we've raised almost $1 million for the Bird Protection Fund. So all the proceeds from the Birdathon goes to the Natural Resources Foundation's Bird Protection Fund, which supports high priority bird conservation projects. And we kind of have 4 priority areas with protecting specific threatened and endangered species, habitat protection and restoration, research and monitoring, and education and outreach. So how you actually get involved with the Birdathon, it's similar to a walkathon style fundraiser, but instead of logging miles, you're logging bird sightings and then collecting pledges or outright donations from your friends and family. So you can register at wisconservation.org/birdathon. And then really how you go out birding is really customizable to whatever works best for you. So you can go out anytime between April 15th and June 15th. And some people do kind of the traditional 24 hours birding and they stay up all night. It's crazy. And then some people also just do a few hours one morning or even for a few days or the whole 2 months. And so you can go birding anywhere in Wisconsin. You can kind of hit all your favorite birding spots, or you can host a big sit, which is pretty much just sitting in one spot and counting the bird species that pass you. So you can participate even from your backyard feeder. And even how you bird. We have the River Raptors is one team that goes birding solely by boat. So there's a lot of unique ways to get involved. So after you register and then kind of pick how you'll go out birding and then obviously helping us fundraise, our goal this year is 125,000 for bird conservation projects. And that's really through all of our participants who fundraise from their friends and family. And then another note, nonprofits, bird clubs, and Wisconsin bird cities are eligible to split their team's funds 50-50 with the Bird Protection Fund through the Birdathon. And then they can also keep half of their team's funds for their own organizations, local bird projects, and environmental education efforts. Oh, I forgot to mention, but on that last slide is kind of, oh, there we go. A map of all our teams so far this year. And so if you don't see a team in your county, then I recommend you start a team. And so this year's Birdathon, our bird of the year is the bobolink, and you can purchase a shirt with that awesome design there to help us support our bird of the year. We've, in the past, the Birdathon proceeds have helped the bobolink by supporting grassland management initiatives. And so which are grasslands habitat is really declining in Wisconsin. And so we wanted to be able to showcase the species and their needs. So just some stats on the Birdathon last year. We had more than 500 birders participate from across the state, making up 72 teams, but you're also welcome to participate as an individual. But our teams are made up of families, friends, coworkers, and even classroom students. And I think we already passed that many teams this year. We have 76 teams signed up. And last year we raised 122,000 for our 100,000 goal, which was incredible. So we upped our goal to 125,000. And we supported 11 priority projects and collectively saw 274 bird species. So please help us raise money for our birds. And it's a lot of fun to go out birding with your friends and family. And you can participate anytime from now through June 15th. And it's open to it's open to everyone. You don't need to have gone out birding before. There's a lot of great teams and experts to help lead the way.
Awesome. Thank you, Somi. Thank you so much for all that info about the Birdathon. The Birdathon is seriously super fun. Our staff Birdathon day is day after tomorrow, and I'm so excited to go out and learn a few new bird species with my very smart coworkers. But you can participate in the Birdathon whether you're already a birder or whether you want to get started for the first time. And it's part of our mission at NRF to protect Wisconsin's lands, waters, and wildlife by providing funding, leading partnerships, and connecting all people to nature. Yeah, so let me share my screen and let's finish this up. Let's see, there's a couple, can you guys see my presentation here? The 4 ways one, yeah?
Yep.
So can you see it? Okay. Let's see, where are we? Other ways to help birds. Oh, there's a spoiler. There's a few, can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. There's a few other ways to help birds that I just wanted to highlight really briefly. Keep your cats indoors, which keeps both cats and birds safe, because cats are also another one of the leading causes of bird mortality. Remove invasive species. Amy talked about the importance of planting native species, but invasive species are not good food sources for native birds. They crowd out native vegetation and they reduce ecological integrity. And avoid using pesticides because herbicides, insecticides, etc., can kill birds' food sources, such as invertebrates, spiders, and worms. And so now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Are you all ready? Hang on. I wish I could get this into presentation mode, but I'm sure you guys just want to hear the answer. Drum roll, please. It is the hefty horned lark. This guy is very chonky and he has won the title 2024's Wisconsin Fat Bird Week winner. So congratulations to the horned lark wherever you are. Hopefully you're still flying around somewhere. And this great photo is taken by photographer Andy Raup. Yeah, he's the winner. I love his attitude personally. I love his little toes and I love his roundness. And I was amazed to see that a bird with a neck actually won. So congrats, hefty horned lark. And now we'll open up for a Q&A. Does anybody, Emma and Somi, have you guys noticed, are there any questions in the chat? If not, I have a million questions I can ask.
Yeah, there's one question from Ellie asking about what the final percent or how much did the hefty hornlark win by. The hefty hornlark got 60% of the vote in the final round. So I think they had 584 votes.
Awesome.
There's another question in the chat. I would like info on the window dots and where to get them. And I think we're sending those links out after the webinar, right, Shelley?
Yes, and there's going to be some discounts that SOS Save Our Songbirds has put together for you all as well. But Brenna, did you want to chime in with any more info on that?
Yeah, so we will send out an email that has links to a number of things, including the Preventing Collisions website or the webpage on our website. So that has a whole bunch of different ideas and links so that you can buy them if you would like to. Lisa has a discount code for those dots if you purchase them online through the Feather Friendly website. But if you're looking to buy locally, if you live in the Madison area And Lisa, you might know more about which stores carry these, but I know Wild Birds Unlimited in Middleton carries those dots in their store. So if you would like to support a local business, you can do that. Lisa, do you know if there are any other Wisconsin companies that carry, retailers that carry those dots?
The Brookfield Wild Birds Unlimited carries that. I understand that the Appleton, I think it's called Wild Birds and Backyard, that they're carrying that, and also the UW Arboretum now has
great.
some. So starting to expand, and in just a minute I will give or I guess we'll be sending out the links that have the codes. So encourage people to take advantage of those discounts on those 2 window treatment products, the feather friendly products, and then the Copian bird savers. Those are good for the month of May. So this is a great time to put those on your windows.
Yeah. And I see someone else in the chat asked about paracord curtains being attached or allowed to move freely. In most cases, you would just leave those paracord strings unattached at the bottom so that they can move in the breeze. In some cases, if the window is really tall, like I was just recently working with a church in Madison that's putting up a paracord curtain, but their window is 2 stories tall. So in that case, I recommended that they tether the strings at the bottom as well, but leave it loose enough that they can still move in the breeze, and then have them a little bit closer together so that it can do maximum prevention of collisions. So yeah, that's a great question.
Any other chat questions?
Will we get a recording of this wonderful presentation? Yes.
Yes, we will be sending out the recording of this along with those links and links to more information about each of the organizations that our presenters are from. So yes, you will receive that afterwards.
And then Marilyn asked, how important is it for us to feed birds during summer? Do certain species need our help more?
Brenna, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, and Amy, feel free to jump in too, because I think this really ties in well with your presentation. So feeding birds is best done through native plants. Like native plants act as living, vibrant, and plentiful bird feeders because there are lots of caterpillars and other insects that are on those plants and using those plants that birds need to feed their young, and some adults as well. But if you're talking more about a traditional bird feeder with seed or nectar or oranges, summer is a less, you certainly can, and it will enhance the bird's diets, but summer is a time of plenty for most birds where they are able to access a lot more insects and nectar and other food sources in more natural ways, and they would prefer to do that. So summer feeding is not as critical as like during winter when there's a big snowstorm, for example. Lisa or Amy, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that is great. Well done, Brenna.
Any other chat questions? I'm really excited to ask my question, but the chat people can go first. It's okay.
I'm not seeing any other ones if you want to ask your questions.
Kidding. All right, my question is for Amy. I was just wondering if you have any recommendations for the best flowers to plant for pollinators that would then feed birds. Do you have anything that just leaps to mind as good ones? I know a lot of people are making decisions about what flowers to plant a little more frequently than what trees and shrubs to plant. So just curious if you had ideas.
Yeah, great question. And you're reading Deborah's mind. I'm seeing in the chat a question about any favorite plant recommendations. So I'm a little bit leery about getting into the specifics with recommendations, just not knowing very much information about, the places that people are thinking about planting. We've already referenced that there's going to be a resource email coming out on the heels of this. And one of the links that directly ties into the native plant component is a list of native plant nurseries that are really good sources for information. And like those would be a great place to take that question. And they'll also have kind of like, if you have a sunny space, here are 5 good flowers for you. And if you have a shady space, here are 5 good flowers for you. But Shelley, since you asked, and I think it's a fabulous question, I will, I would say one of the, like for a more of a sunny context, some of the flowers that I really love a lot, well, the strawberry, we've already talked about the strawberry that's happy almost anywhere, but some of the late blooming, like the asters and the, coneflowers are really good at the end of the growing season. So if you think in the prairies, got like all of those asters that are blooming in August. Also the coneflowers, purple coneflower, pale purple coneflower is a super good pollinator plant. And that it also is really good for all of our seed eaters like goldfinches and other late season birds that are looking for seeds when those seeds come ripe at the end of the year.
Awesome.
Can I add to that?
Please
I
do.
love talking about plants too, Amy. So I am totally with you on the late blooming stuff in the fall. Right now, my favorite is Jacob's Ladder, which is blooming. It's like a really early spring bloomer. So it's blooming right now, and it's this most beautiful light blue color. And it's a nice reseeder. So it's not aggressive, but it will spread into your yard in a nice, or like your garden in a nice way. And then if you're looking for a shrub, 100% serviceberry. They're just like, I think that as much as every yard has a lilac, every yard should also have a serviceberry, or maybe instead of, because they're really great in lots of different ways. They're blooming right now as well. And then they get covered in pollinators and insects when they're blooming. And then they have nice berries that ripen in the summer.
Shelley, I will also add a link or give a link that you can put in that email, the follow-up email that will go to Mariette Nowak's Beyond the Bird Feeder booklet, which has great lists of native trees, shrubs, and wildflowers for birds. So I think that I'll send that to you right after this is over. We can maybe add that. That works.
Great. Yeah, that would be wonderful. We can definitely add that in. All right, we're almost at 1, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Does anybody have any last, like a 30-second question? All right. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much to our presenters, and thank you to everybody who came. Thanks to SOS Save Our Songbirds for working together with NRF on this webinar, and also with Fat Bird Week. And thanks to Emma, shout out to Emma for all your work during Fat Bird Week. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, go ahead and follow us on social media if you wanna, keep tabs on Fat Bird Week next year, and follow along with our, presenters organizations as well, because they're all doing such wonderful work. And yeah, we hope you're so in love with the birds of Wisconsin now, after seeing all those cute fat bird photos, that you go take one of these actions to help protect them. But yeah, thank you all for coming, and hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.